Well, hello, everybody. My name is Andy Brisley, and I'm with Accelytics Consulting. If there are any questions, feel free to pop them up. Today is just going to be a brief discussion around the concept of segmentation. Now, segmentation has been around for years, and companies have used it in some form or another. But what it is typically looked at, some companies have started it as a single use case and then put it on the shelf. Other companies may be doing it annually. And in today's environment, it's really critical to be able to understand where things are coming from. What is the impact? At the end of the day, we have to, to make the supply and make all of the systems work, we have to understand demand. But those demand patterns are going to be shifting. The areas coming back online are going to be different. And heaven forbid there's a relapse of something and that one area goes up, another area goes down. So it's just the idea of being able to dynamically adjust that segmentation as you're going along. I heard a quote the other day, and I think it's really appropriate. And that quote is, "Hope is not a strategy." And so by just using these very, very simple tools that everybody has access to, but may have overlooked, including segmentation, it is a way to start being able to respond to the different demand signals, the different supply disruptions and those type of things. So very, very quickly, I'll just go over some of the areas that we have thought about at Accelytics. Also, who is Accelytics in general? Well, Accelytics is a very boutique consulting firm. We focus in just supply chain and finance areas. And really, as the slide says, our mission is to help you improve the quality of life by bringing that whole concept of connected planning together. And segmentation is a big part of that connected planning. The data is only going to work as well as the data that you provide. It's the old, again, garbage in, garbage out. So being able to understand and putting a little bit more effort into the concepts of segmentation, I think will provide a lot better results, again, as these waves of recovery are coming around. So I'm going to jump right in. That's our Accelytics commercial, but I'm going to jump right in and just start talking about some of the things that we here at Accelytics have looked at and thought about around the concepts of segmentations. And the first thing that we have to do is we have to understand who is our customer. And when we look at our customer, well, our customers are based around various geographies. And the way that things are being set up, the way things are being rolled out in different areas. Some areas in the US have shelter in place or stay at home or whatever you want to refer to it. Other areas are starting to open up. And so even within the different areas, some areas in the very, very large areas, in the metropolitan areas, have been hit very hard and may have the shelter in place orders stay a little bit longer. So demand may not come back as quickly in those areas, but more of the rural areas may have a quicker recovery. So again, if we just kind of understand, let's take a look at that geography. And the more detail, the better that we can have, even if we're using 3-digit zip codes. If not, let's start using states or use regions, maybe even using your sales hierarchy, whatever that you have to understand the geographies that you are going to be focusing on, because again, these geographies are going to come back online at different times. And so what are the different data elements that we want to look at? So obviously, who is the customer in that geography? You know, how many different distribution centers does that customer have? What areas are they serving? And then again, looking at what is the industry and the SIC code that are in those particular geographies, and are you part of that recovery? Are you considered an essential service? And what are you doing? So many of the companies have really gone and concentrated on different products that they've had. So how are they going to retool and come up with the actual information or the actual products that they're doing? and looking and seeing from a historical data is going to be very, very skewed right now, but we still have to see what those actual shipments were. And then again, combining syndicated data, if available by those very, very specific geographies, is another area that we can help, that can help us segment those geographies in whether you want to use ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Really doesn't make a difference, but come to a conclusion on, or come to a standard that your companies are going to be following. And the next step to do is, now that we've kind of got these geographies identified, and again, because they're going to come and they're going to go, and demand, as always, ebbs and flows, but now let's go down and take a look at our customers. And what is the value of those sales that we are going in those customers? But more importantly, sometimes it's, how do you segment that relationship? Is it a strategic? Is it emergent? Is it an emerging customer that you really want to get in good with, and that you are going to do whatever it takes to satisfy? Maybe they're category leaders in the areas that they're serving, and that kind of goes along with the industry position and influence. And these are the different elements or data, the detail that you want to look at when you're deciding which customer in which geography are you going to be able to fill. Because at the end of the day, they're more than likely, if you have been effective, if your work staff has been affected, it may be very difficult to come around with and take care of all that stuff. So a different area to take a look at is when you're looking at those total sales, is the total sales by customer, and the total sales of that customer by different geographies. And also taking a look at what are those seasonal sales, so you can adjust for that. You may be coming into, back to school, going to school, summer's coming up. How are these different buying patterns effective in the industries that you serve? And very important, and sometimes overlooked, is what are the causal behaviors that you're looking at for particular customers, and being able to assign that, so you can do the different analysis by the different causal factors that are important today. And some of those causal factors, a good example may be weather. If there is, rainy seasons, gutters may be coming online faster. The different causal factors can be many, but again, between identifying this and being able to segment that type of information along with the customer into the customer data, gives you a better idea of that customer in those particular geographies. How are we going to serve that customer better? What is most important? Who is the most important customer to serve while I'm going through these recoveries and going through the ebbs and flows? Now, the issue in the past has always been, and what typical historical or statistical forecasting will look and give me a look of 3 years, 2 years worth of data. Well, you know what? The last 2 months haven't really been assignable, haven't been normal. So being able to, again, take that causal behavior and say, this is what has caused this downturn, and this is what I'm kind of expecting going back up. So again, being able to use that, how volatile is that particular customer to those causals. The other thing that customers need to look at, and this is an area between geographies and customers and products that people may have segmented in the past, but they may not have gotten down to the detail that is going to end up being really helpful. Obviously, from a product standpoint, the cost of the product, the lead time of the product, the category of the product that I may be using, where am I going to utilize that product, but also, do I really need to use that product? Is there a product that is more important for me to have for that particular customer in that particular geography during this particular phase of the recovery? And if I don't have things segmented out properly, it's going to be more difficult for me to get to that piece of information. And so we can look at the data elements of the cost of the product per region. It may cost more to get to a particular region. What is the distribution capability within that region? What are the stocking and replenishment policies per that region, per that customer, and per that geography? Again, being able to segment up that hierarchy is going to add a lot of value to you when you're going through these different recoveries. And there is also going to be important market attribution. So one of your products may be incredibly critical to one industry, but not to a different market. So being able to have multiple pieces of information along that product line, not just cost, not just lead time, and not just a category of the product, but the attribution that makes them important, A, to you, and B, to your customers in those particular geographies. One of the other things that we want to look at, and it just may make a lot of sense, is a whole concept of what is my supplier segmentation. Now, important in this case, as well as it is in the customer case, is the geography that they may be serving. When they're looking, are they going to be coming online? Are they going to be impacted by the different use case or the different situations and the different recovery efforts? What is the strategic relevance of that particular supplier to your supply chain? Is it critical? Is it just, okay, I can have many, many different suppliers in that? Do I have an A, B, C, D supplier that I want to look at? And the other thing that a lot of customers that I've been working with may tend to overlook is, hey, where do I rate in that supplier's hierarchy in and of itself? So again, some of the data elements that you're going to be looking for is the zip code. If you can get that information, obviously you have that information, but do you want to segment down to that level, again, just to be able to anticipate that recovery coming on, knowing where those recovery is important. And this goes along with the whole concept of the geography. But also important is the whole OTIF, or on time, in full, reliability and quality performance of that supplier. If that supplier has an issue and has had issues during these downtimes, is that issue going to be exacerbated? Is it going to increase? Is the reliability of that supplier going to be impacted? So we have to be able to dynamically change some of these segmentation values based off of their performance. And again, if you have the access to the different cases of syndicated data, that's great. Let's use that syndicated data or any type of marketing information that you may have, market knowledge, industry knowledge that you may possess for the different suppliers in the different industries that they're serving. A good example may be the oil industry. That's just going crazy right now with the storage capacity. Who's serving that industry? Well, okay, also going into the folks that are doing fracking and looking at shale type of stuff. What type of impact is that going to come online? And is your supplier being impacted by that as well as your customers? And one of the last things that you may want to look at and segment accordingly is the transportation. Whether it's, again, in the geography, what is the mode of that transportation? Truck? Am I crossing borders with it? Should I expect longer lead times? And what is the cost and that cost volatility? How reliable have they been? And another key factor when you're starting to look at some of these segmentation values is what is the most common dispatch point, not just for inbound, but for outbound shipments as well. And again, how are companies being impacted as this recovery comes up and may go down? And people are saying that this is going to ebb and flow. The term new normal is just a little bit different because I don't know that anybody knows what normal is going to be. So the fact of the matter is that as a supplier to a particular customer or anybody that is involved in these supply chains, these are data elements that we have to start maintaining and paying more attention to. And while it's simple, it is going to be able to allow you to take a near-term approach by knowing your consumers, prioritizing the products, and changing your replenishment policies. You'll also be able to forecast, more quickly and react better with those different tactics that you may have to use. The replenishment policy may change accordingly as things ebb and flow. And this also is going to go into the midterm. Now, one of the big issues that customers have had going through this concept of segmentation, yeah, there's a lot of data, and some of this data goes through across and multiple systems, and that's why at Accelytics, we believe Anaplan is a great platform to bring this data together from multiple different sources. And even if you want to make Anaplan the master data of some of those final segmentation calls, Anaplan has the ability to go through and dynamically re-rank based off of your latest data pull, and you should be pulling that data, daily, and sometimes even more, depending on how volatile your markets are. So you can readjust based off of what is going on in the recovery. So I started this whole session off with a quote of, "Hope is not a strategy." And it is our belief that by taking these steps now, and again, segmentation has been around for a long time, it just hasn't really been applied and I don't want to use strategic, but it hasn't been applied. The attention hasn't been maintained to the detail as well as to the maintenance. A, because it does exist across multiple areas, and B, because it can be difficult to maintain. So being able to have that system that helps you collect that data as well as re-rank the data dynamically is going to be very, very critical. So that's basically what I had in this general session. And I'd love to hear, is there any conversation? All right, well, hearing none, I will go ahead and end this conversation, and hopefully it was value. Thanks a lot. And by the way, always, always, always think of Accelytics for your partnering in these next steps. We're here to help, and you can go to accelytics.com and just click on info, and we'd be happy to reach out. Thank you so much for your time today.